In today's video, we're back with some updated NHL trade rumors, including some talk that Dallas Stars captain Jamie Benn might actually be traded this summer. Plus, could the Edmonton Oilers actually buy out the very expensive contract of Milan Lucic? And could a Minnesota Wild right-shot defenseman Jared Spurgeon be on the move as well? We'll discuss all the latest coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. Three main points to cover here today, and I want to get started with Dallas Stars captain Jamie Benn and all the talk that he might actually be traded this summer and possibly to the Vancouver Canucks, which is the latest rumor that's been circulating through social media. Now, of course, Jamie Benn did not have a great year with Dallas. Obviously, his numbers were down quite a bit. Obviously, there was the incident earlier this year with Jim Lights, coming out and calling out Seguin and Benn both, saying how they needed to be better and their performance wasn't up to par, and a lot of their problems the team was having was really based on their two big horses here not getting the job done. Well, Tyler Seguin later picked up his play and certainly finished the season relatively strong, along with line mate Alexander Radulov. But Jamie Benn really struggled throughout the year and never really got back on track here. So there's certainly obviously a lot of talk this time of year about players maybe being moved, especially when you've had a down year and you have a very expensive contract. Jamie Benn's 29 years old. He will be turning 30 this summer, and he has 6 more years left on his contract at $9.5 million. Now, Jamie Benn's been a very productive player for the Dallas Stars over the last number of years. He's a former Art Ross Trophy winner. He's certainly can play that power forward type of role, can score lots of goals, rack up the assists. He's had a great chemistry with Tyler Seguin on that line. So certainly he's been a great fit there, but you can't help but wonder, after everything he's been through this year, would he be open to moving on? Now, Jamie Benn does have a full no-move clause, which certainly complicates the possibility of them trading him. However, it's been believed, and the reports are circulating out there, that if he were to accept a trade, he'd want to go back home to the Vancouver Canucks. Now, that's quite a common thing with players when they hit the rumor mill about being traded, especially when they have no trade clauses. Where would they go? Obviously, their hometown team is usually a place that most players would be willing to accept to go to. So obviously the speculation being out there was that the Dallas Stars might be looking for Bo Horvat in return. And personally, that's probably a deal I would not make if I was the Vancouver Canucks. If I was the Vancouver Canucks, I would certainly be open to making a trade for Jamie Benn. I think he could be a welcome addition on that left side, playing in their top 6. When you think about the possibility of him being that big, solid power winger who can play with Pettersson and Besser and protect Pettersson as well, that certainly, sounds very interesting for sure. But to give up your likely future captain and your number 2 center in your top 6, Bo Horvat, I think in some ways would set the team back. I mean, Horvat is significantly younger, making less money, and I think in the short term here could possibly be relatively close in productivity, especially if Jamie Benn doesn't pick up the pace here based on where he was this year. So overall, I don't like the move if Horvat's involved. If they can swing the deal and have other players involved or picks or something else, then perhaps. But otherwise, I just don't see that being a good trade for the Canucks. But regardless of the fact, there is some talk that Jamie Benn might be moved this summer. That comes from Elliot Friedman in his latest 31 Thoughts podcast. It's kind of believed that there's still some hard feelings after everything that went down with Jim Lights and his comments. And obviously those comments were also somewhat echoed by ownership, and to a degree the GM didn't really have much to say about it either to defend his players, because obviously things weren't going well at the time. Based on the fact that he has a no-move clause and an expensive contract, it certainly does complicate things and certainly makes the odds of a trade happening somewhat slim, but I would not be shocked if Jamie Benn himself even asked for a trade. I know there was a lot of talk around that at the time when the incident in the comments with Jim Lights first happened. Nothing's come to be as of yet. But anytime you've heard kind of Jamie Benn talk in any kind of interviews and about the situation, there does certainly seem to be some hard feelings there. So we'll be interesting to see how he regroups this summer and if there's possibly a breakup between the Stars and their captain. Question I pose to you here today: if those trade rumors have anything to it and he did end up going to the Canucks, would you trade Bo Horvat for Jamie Benn? I know I wouldn't. I mean, like I said, I'm open to him going to Vancouver, but not for that price tag. Let me know your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation down in the comments. Now, as I mentioned in the opener as well, there was some talk here about Milan Lucic and the Oilers maybe considering buying him out. Now, this was prior to Ken Holland being hired as the general manager. Obviously, so this is the thoughts probably between Keith Gretzky, Bob Nicholson, and the rest of the management team there. It was something they were considering. That's only if they can't find a suitable trade. Now, it's been believed that they tried to trade Lucic last summer, but the price tag was just way too high. They didn't find a deal that they found to be suitable, so the deal obviously never ended up happening. But now there's some talk that they're going to try to trade him again. But if that fails, they could consider a buyout. Now, here's how a buyout would work for Lucic. It would be a bit expensive and be stretched out over a fairly substantial period of time, but it would give them some cap relief here in the short term. I'll put a graphic up on the screen so you can have a look here to follow along. So right now, Milan Lucic has 4 years left after this year at $6 million per year. So obviously that's a $6 million cap hit. Here's how the buyout would work. In the first year of the season coming up, the cap hit would drop to 3.625. The year after it would bump up to 5.625. In year 3, it'd be 4.125, followed by year 4 at 5.625. Now, unfortunately, here's the part that kind of sucks a little bit, but it's not too bad, is that it's stretched out over the double of the remaining term. So you're looking at an 8-year impact on the cap, but those final 4 years, it's only $625,000. So obviously, that is not to be too bit of a concern where you get the savings in the first 4 years, but there's a couple of those years where the savings are not too significant. If you look at years 2 and 4, they're only saving shy of $400,000 in cap space. Years 1 and 3 are a little bit more significant. So it's certainly something they're going to have to proceed with caution here on. I know we talked about the fact that maybe him being traded for another contract that's not really favorable as well, but they'd also have to maybe throw in something kind of a sweetener into the deal for any team to take this on. So it's certainly debatable what the Oilers do. I'm not really sure he can be rehabilitated into the kind of player that he needs to be to earn that kind of income. So it's certainly something that's on the table with the Oilers. And it will be interesting to see if new GM Ken Holland is on board with that idea or if he chooses to go a different road. They will attempt to trade him first. Hard to say exactly where, if any takers. But if a trade can't be had, this very well might be explored further. Lastly here, I wanted to talk about the Minnesota Wild and the fact that they are expected to be somewhat active this offseason. Obviously, they have a new GM in Paul Fenton, who's yet they really make too significant of some trades. And the ones he has made so far, to be honest, haven't been real fond of. Like, for example, that Niederreiter for Rask deal hasn't worked out in that 1-for-1 trade. So hopefully he can get a better return here for some of these additional moves that he's expected to be looking into. Of course, we discussed the fact that at the deadline, he was super close to trading Jason Zucker to Calgary. Not quite sure exactly what the return was. The Flames thought they had a deal, but for whatever reason, it didn't get processed before the deadline, so the deal never happened. So they are expected to likely revisit that trade here sometime before the draft. If that happens, then that very well might be something we see. If not, the other guy to look to is right shot defenseman Jared Spurgeon. Now, he's about to be 30 years old. He's a right shot defenseman, which is something that's highly coveted in the NHL. And he's coming off a season where he put up some career highs with over 40 points. And he's got 1 year left on his contract. So the Minnesota Wild are likely in a position where they need to consider either doing an extension for him or consider moving him. In my opinion, the trade value would be there. There'd be lots of teams likely interested for a player who's been as productive as him, and where he does have only 1 year left on his deal. They could consider having him just for the one season and kind of evaluate things and look at an extension afterwards, depending on what him and his agent are looking for. It's certainly not a complete foregone conclusion that he gets traded or that the team that acquires him extends him. But either way, he might be a hot commodity this summer where right shot defenseman are something that many teams are looking after, especially when you're looking at a team like, for example, the Toronto Maple Leafs have been looking for a right shot defenseman for some period of time. So it might be a player that they show interest in. And of course, the Minnesota Wild need some scoring forwards, which is what Toronto's heavy in. So that very well might be a good match that both teams might want to take a look at there. However, though, I do expect Paul Fenton and the Wild to be somewhat active this summer, and I would fully expect him to be re-engaged in the Zucker front if they were that close to trading him at the deadline. I can imagine that he very likely does get dealt this summer. And of course, like I said, Jared Spurgeon as well, highly likely to move based on the situation here as well. Be a prime example of them selling an asset while the value is there instead of hanging on to them too long and then not getting any value down the road. So that is all your updated news and rumors here for today. Of course, as always, want to hear your thoughts and comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, I hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and give it a thumbs up before you go if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.